So about a week ago, I went out and bought one of the new Mac Studio M4 Max units, and it was the base unit because that's the one that they actually have at the actual store. So it's really the only one that I could pick up. But anyways, one of the things that I wanted to do was actually see if it justified the actual price, especially for someone that is coming from an M1 Mac Studio. But I also have an M4 Pro Macbook Pro, again, the base unit. The big difference with my M1 Max Studio is that I did upgrade it during the actual when I bought it. So instead of the base unit, I actually went with the 32 core for the graphics. So a little bit of an upgrade. I also put a terabyte hard drive in it. But again, I wanted to see how well the old M1 Max or my M1 Max did against the new M4 Max. And I did a whole bunch of testing. So without taking up too much time, let's kind of just go through this. And again, there's a lot of benchmark tests, but I did it as well because a lot of times they put the base up against the base. Mine's a little different because it was a bit of a custom. So let's start with some of the benchmark scores. So the first benchmark score I did, of course, was Cinebench. The M1 Max. Again, we have just normal numbers here. So first off is the multi-core for the CPU. And you can see, of course, here that the M1 Max is the one that is the slowest, for sure, right? You're getting a score of 11,135 versus the M4 Pro MacBook that did it in 17,348. And the M4 Max, again, because it has more cores, which makes sense, right? 19,577. So in that aspect, you are seeing a pretty good jump from the original M1 Max to the M4 M1 Max, almost double the speed in that. But again, these are benchmarks. So then I did a solo, so just a single core. And of course, when you go to the single core, just as you would expect, the M4 Pro and the M4 Max single core, pretty much identical. 2101 for the Pro, and then 2099 for the M4 Max. Again, single core. So they're pretty much using the exact same cores or same chip. So that was expected to get the same actual result. But as you can see, the M1 Max definitely slower, right? But still holding its own, 1486 for a chip that is 3 generations old now. Actually, not too bad. But as we can see, there's a lot of software out there that actually uses the CPUs. So having modern versions, of course, is going to be beneficial without question. We then switch to 3D Mark. So 3D Mark, we actually see here that, again, the M1 Max, because of the fact that it was doing some graphics, actually did very well, especially in regards to the M4 Pro. So we got a score of 7,194. So it actually beat out the M4 Pro, coming in at 6,698. But again, with the modern chipset and more cores, with the M4 Max pulled out without question, it's something that we should expect at 12,067. So again, if you look at the M4 Max base in comparison to my little bit souped up M1 Max, we're getting close to double the speed. So again, not too bad in regards to that. Last one there is they kind of bring this into frames per second. So how many frames it actually has that ability to kind of process through. And this is where we see those scores, right? So the M1 Max actually pulling out more frames per second. The M1, again, because of the it having more actual GPU cores. So we pulled in at 53.3 frames per second, which kind of hit mid a little bit faster than the M4 Pro. Not a lot, but again, you know what? It's a 3-year-old or 3 generation old machine. So the M4 Pro actually pulled in at 49.6 frames per second. So a tad bit slower. M4 Max, it just was eaten through that without question, coming in at almost 90 frames per second, so 89.4. So that's a nice difference. So if you are going to be using things that are like GPU intensive, then I think you're going to be quite happy with that, upgrade from there. Geekbench, we went to, again, CPU core. So here we actually see, again, single core, that the M4 Pro, M4 Max, pretty close to, again, identical because of the fact that they're kind of using the same CPU, just one has more of them. So the M4 Pro came in at 3570 versus 3604 for the M4 Max. And then when we went back to the M1 Max, we are at 2369. So not a double the speed, but you're getting about a third of a speed increase. So in regards to performance, when we go to the multi-core for the CPU, of course, this is where you start to see, again, those extra cores coming in. So the M1 Max scored out at about 12,188. M4 Pro at 19,113, and then the M4 Max 21,158. So again, when we're looking at the physical scores, right, even with multi-core here, the more cores that you can have, which makes sense, is going to be more beneficial compared to less cores. Plus modern day cores versus a 3-year-old core. The M4 Max coming in at 21,158. So as you can see by the graph, the M4 Pro and the M4 Max actually surprisingly close to each other in the CPU core. But again, we're just getting those extra few cores inside the Max, so it makes sense. The M1 Max, of course, falling down a little bit again, about half the speed from the old M1 Max to the new M4 Max. When we go to Geekbench, we have the GPU. And this, again, you got to remember, the M1 Max has more GPU cores to it. So the actual M1 Max scored in at 126,312 versus the M4 Pro, which 98,676. So the M1 Max actually performed better. It actually got a better score. Now, the M4 Max just kind of wipe the table, 172,784. So we are definitely, if you look at the M1 Max versus the M4 Max, we are constantly seeing somewhere between, it being twice as fast, maybe, a third faster, depending on, again, your process on what you actually need. This could be actually quite important. Then I went and ran the new Geekbench AI. Now, it comes out with a whole bunch of scores, but I actually just took what they call the quantized score. So again, you are seeing the M4 Pro and the M4 Max pretty much being equal, which again makes sense. And this is for the CPU. So you're getting 6,827 on the Pro, followed by 7,030 on the Studio, so the M4 Max. So is there a big difference between those two? No, not really. Not if you're using the CPU. Now, the M1 Max, again, all the way down to a 4,489. Still a very powerful machine. But in comparison to the new machines, if you're doing AI, then the M4s, especially if it's CPU based, definitely the way to go in regards to that. Then we look at the GPU. So if it's something that's going to be using GPU, this is where we actually see the GPU, of course, on the older machines, even though, again, there's more for the fact that they are older. They just don't have that computational power there. So the M1 Max pulled in at 10,666, the M4 Pro, 14,055, and the M4 Max, 20,157. So we are seeing a nice steady incremental increase in that. Last but not least, we have the neural engine test for these machines, again, for Geekbench AI. And this is where, again, the new neural engines just dominate in regards to this, especially as they've been upgraded through the years. So the M1 Max, 14,108, and as you can see by the chart, it's way down there in comparison to the new one. M4 Pro and the M4 Max, again, pretty much identical to each other. Surprisingly, again, the M4 Pro came out ahead, 50,966 with the M4 Max, 49,765. Now, doing these tests repeatedly, sometimes you could see the Studio be a little faster, sometimes you could see the Pro being faster. It seems like it really had to do with maybe things that were possibly running in the background. Then I jumped into Final Cut Pro, which is the application that I use for editing, because this was a decision for me, right? I wanted to make sure that if I wanted to keep this, it was going to be worth it for time savings. I knew that the M4 should be faster, right? Everything should be quicker on it. But I actually took an 8K timeline. So there was a mix of 8K footage, there was 4K footage, there was 8K Insta360 footage, there was some 2.7K footage, again, all being converted up to that 8K timeline. And this is where we see a little bit of a difference. And I actually ran this test just multiple times because I was a little confused as to some of the results, but I always got the same results. So rendering this 17-minute timeline, as you can see here, and this, the lower the scores, the actual better, right? So the lower the better. Of course, the M4 Max came out at the top, 350 seconds. Okay, 350 seconds. But it was closely followed by the M1 Mac Studio, which brought it in at 371 seconds. So not a huge difference between those two, which again, I was surprised at. M4 Pro, 765 seconds. So as you can see by the graph, I'm not even 100% sure why, but the M4 Pro was having issues during this upresing and rendering. And again, I was using an external drive as the drive that I use, and it's a Thunderbolt 4 drive, so it should be plenty fast. But even then, right, it took twice as long to actually render this out. And you guys can't see it, but I'm actually doing some more rendering here on my old M1 Mac Studio, and it's taken a bit. You know what? It is what it is. I really did not expect the M1 Mac Studio to be better than the M4 Pro in regards to this. I really don't know why. You know, I was going to be using my M4 Pro a lot for editing, and it's going to be, of course, my travel machine. But you know, rendering time is very important. So I was a little confused to that. We go now back to that same 8K timeline, 17 minutes. 8K. We are exporting in 8K. We are also exporting in 10-bit HEVC codec. And we can see here again, they're close, but the M1 Max, of course, this is in seconds. As we look here, the M1 Max did it in 1,816 seconds. The M4 Pro did it in 1,471 seconds. And the M4 Max did it in 782 seconds. Now, for some reason, I think my graph may be a little outdated. I may have to check that because, again, the M1 Max should be closer. For some reason, it's saying, I'm going to check my graph. You guys should see the updated version, just so you guys know. But for me looking at this, I'm like, what's going on here? Anyways, the M4 Pro and the M4 Max did it fastest. But looking at the M4 Max, it's almost twice as fast, right? It's twice as fast as the M1 Max for sure. And almost, it's definitely coming in about twice as fast for the M4 Pro. Then we switch now to an actual 4K timeline. So this time we're kind of using AI here, and it's a 22-minute timeline. And it was using the magnetic mask. So I basically just had it cut me out of the background off of this full 22-minute section. So again, the M1 Max did it in 2,560 seconds, and the M4 Pro and the M4 Max, again, almost identical for this. So you're looking at 1,860 for the M4 Pro, and the M4 Max did it in 1,858. So was it faster? Yeah, by 2 seconds. Not a lot, right? They're pretty much identical. Then I did another magnetic timeline or magnetic mask inside, but I changed it to an 8K piece of footage. And normally you and I probably aren't going to be using magnetic mask for a whole 22-minute section. But this was a 30-second clip, 8K. Again, we'll look at the M1 Max, took 77 seconds. The M4 Pro, 41 seconds. and the M4 Max 39 seconds. So again, the M4 Pro, M4 Max doing it pretty much on par with each other. So if that's something big, I don't know if I'd be necessarily overly concerned about the actual speed increase that you get from the one to the Max. Then for fun sakes, I decided let's see what some gaming is like, because you know what, people game. Not always on a Mac, but if you're spending this much money on a Mac, maybe you want to play some games. Now, I didn't do some modern games. These are a bit older. First off was Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And again, you can see here, right? Because of the GPU cores of the older machine, the M1 Max Studio with the 32 GPU cores, it actually beat out the M4 Pro. So the M4 Pro got 49 frames per second. Now these were running on the highest settings of Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So I did this on all of them. 49 frames for the Pro. The M1 Max pulled out at 76 frames. So actually a nice upgrade. And then the M4 Max came out at 110 frames. So again, that's very gameable. But even my M1 Max, 76 frames, that's not too bad, right? We're getting pretty close. You know, for those of us that, for me, being a console gamer, if I can get over 60 frames per second, I'm very happy. Then we played another game, Middle Earth. This is Shadow of Mordor. Again, not a current game, but a game that has some graphic punch to it. And we'll see, we put this at ultra settings. So again, the highest that these machines could do it. Now, in both of these tests, I ran the same monitor settings. So we were pushing in at 2560 by about 1080 for all of them. And again, what you can see here is that weirdly enough, the M1 Max and the M4 Pro, almost identical to each other. The M1 pulling in at 51.7 and the M4 Pro coming in at 53.2. So very comparable. I don't think you'd see any kind of difference. The M4 Max, though, all the way up at 81 again. So we're up in the 80s. Again, we're well above that 60 frames per second. So, and this is in full ultra. So that's not horrible at all. So I think, you know, the real question is, when you look at these, if you have a M1 Studio, now if you have the Max that's base, of course, anything that really brings that machine up and over, you know, the M4 Pro is, I want to say, software that is GPU intensive, right? Because of the fact that I have more GPU cores, for the fact that the Studio just by base, I believe, had just as many or more GPU cores than the M4 Pro. I don't think going from the Studio to the M4 Pro, the old one, the M1 Max, the M4 Pro, for a lot of people is going to be worth that, you know, $2,000-$3,000 investment. You know, I would probably say that you could still hang on to your M1 Max and be very happy with it. You know, for me, there are some times that I find that, you know, I have to sit and wait. Again, this machine right now, because it is doing some machine learning type stuff, I guess, on the machine. I think the new one would just definitely blow through this a lot better. But, you know, for day to day and even video editing, you know, I do video editing multiple times throughout the week whenever I have some time to get these videos up for you guys. And, you know, unless I'm doing super intensive stuff, is it worth me buying the new M4 Max Pro? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I want to say that if there was a M5 Max Studio coming out, right, in the next, let's say, year or so, there's a good chance that I would hold off. My worry is that, you know, it's going to take 3 generations again for the Studio to get an update, right? You know, is it going to take 2-3 years? Am I going to want to wait 2-3 years? You know, with more complicated AI starting to come out, are we going to start seeing that neural engine that's in like the M4, which dominated the M1? Is that going to be coming into effect a lot more? If that's the case, do I want to again wait 2-3 years to buy a machine that's the exact machine that I could buy today? You know, if that's the case, then I should just buy it now and I get all the benefits of owning it for the next 2 years, 3 years versus the older machine. Anyways, I wanted to put some of these times, some of these scores up for you guys. You could actually see the performance from the M1 Max Studio to the M4 Max Studio. Plus, of course, throw in my M4 Pro Macbook, just so you guys can see some of the differences, and I hope that they actually helped you. Maybe they just confused you more like they did with me, because I'm just like, you know what, day-to-day usage, is it gonna be a big change? I don't know. The M1 Max, it's still a killer machine, right? It still just works so well. Is the new machine gonna give me some time savings? Yeah, without question, there's gonna be time savings, right? But, exporting, things like that, the exporting is a big one. I can export at night. I can export when I'm watching TV, right? I can set up stuff to export when I'm not around the computer. Um, but the render times, right? Big thing. I use a lot of Insta360 footage for some of my, especially my vlog videos on the other channel. They are definitely faster, right? On the M4. So I have some thinking to do. Let me know your thoughts, right? Do you have an M1? Are you considering going to an M4? Do you think it's worth the price to get this machine now? Do you think Apple's going to have another studio come out anytime soon? Or is this the machine that's going to be around for the next 2 or 3 generations again? Anyways, leave your comments down below. Hope this information was useful, and I will see you guys next video. Again, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that little notification bell, and that's it. Do all the stuff. It helps the channel, and helps support me, which is amazing. I love you guys. I'm out. Later.